Hello, welcome to the second episode of Christian Comics Connection here at Creative Motion TV. Don't forget to subscribe and get the latest news in Christian arts and media, theater, acting, TV, comics, of course. My name is Jose Carlos Gutierrez. I'm president of Comics 35 Next Gen, a ministry committed to create Christian comics worldwide through consultation, coaching, training, networking. We'll continue the activities that Comics 35 started from 1996 to 2019. I'm sorry I said in my last video that it was until 2018. My bad. If you're wondering what are Christian comics, or you would like to know more about them, or you're already creating Christian comics and you would like to get inspired, keep watching. In Comics Creation Spotlight, Pastor Luke Stone talks about his comic book series, published by Starcross Comics. In Christian Comics Throwback, a look at the Sunday Picks, comic book series by David C. Cook Publishing. And finally, our featured guest, Al Nickerson, talks about his new graphic novel, The Sword of Eden. And let's start defining what we refer to as comics is a sequence of images that tell a story or make a point. And when we talk about Christian comics, we talk about Christ-centered messages, either by Bible adaptations, personal testimonies, or fiction. Through combination of images and text, comics can take us to any kind of wonderful worlds. We can have amazing adventures with appealing, powerful, or funny characters. I have here with me two printed examples of the story of Jesus Christ in the form of comics. Both are wonderful pieces, greatly crafted, great quality. So we're gonna see them not for comparison, but for inspiration and general information. This one is called Qui est Jésus, or Who is Jesus? This is a publication by Bayard de Jeunesse, or the youth line of Bayard Publications. It was published to be sold in France and Belgium. You can see the kind of layout with organized panels is real popular in many countries of Europe. It was drawn by a great illustrator and friend of mine, Didier Millot. You can check his website for more information on his work. This other one is called Manga Messiah. If you're not familiar with the term manga, it refers to Japanese comics or comics created in Japan or comics created outside Japan with this kind of a style. This is a hardcover edition. It was, this was for a contest. The usual edition, it's a soft cover like this one, but this one is in French, so I'm gonna use as an example this one that is in English. All right. As you can see, the format is smaller than this other one because it's more popular this kind of format in Japan and other Asian countries. So, a fun fact: do you know that in Japan there are these internet cafes that I call Manga Akisa, where you can rent by the hour and have access to tons of manga. And with your fee, you can have access to a computer with internet and lots of soft drinks and guess what? Hot soup. Yeah, that's right. Hot soup. Isn't that amazing? It has many more pages. And this is what we can also know as a graphic novel, a popular term nowadays. And it's not that it's a novel in the format of comics, but it can be a comic with more pages, different issues combined into one. In the Manga Messiah, it has an armor, long popular hair, like an ancient warrior. Some of famous Japanese cartoons or anime, as they are known, like Zodiac Knights, have this kind of look. The Bible says in Luke 24:4, while they were perplexed about this thing, suddenly two men in dazzling clothes stood beside them. So let's connect to the birth of Jesus. In the French comic, it appears in a couple of panels, as we can see. About Jesus' adult look, Jesus has dark hair and beard, according to facial and ethnic features of the region and time when Jesus came to earth in human form. It is interesting to see how the 12 apostles are presented in both comics. Some of the most known sermons of Jesus, like the Mount Sermon, is presented in both, and look at his entrance to Jerusalem before his death, wonderfully displayed in both comics. Then we have down the Last Supper, also a very well-known passage from the scriptures, where Jesus is announcing his death. Then the crucifixion and his final action as human, portrayed obviously according to the target. This is where he defeated sin and death by resurrection. We can see images of resurrection in both comics. And finally, his last words to the apostles, leaving them the Great Commission to share the good news all over the world and make disciples in his name. Now, let's talk about extras or additional features or information besides the drawings or the basic storytelling. In Who is Jesus, we have the map at the beginning and at the end an amazing section of questions and answers about Jesus, his life, his purpose, and I like how are they written as children make them. And also a page displaying some of Jesus' representation through art history. In the Manga Messiah, we have also a map, an infography of the apostles, and some key characters. If you want to know more about these wonderful books, go to voyagejeunesse.com for Who is Jesus and to nextmanga.com for the Manga Messiah series. These are great treasures in my personal library, I can tell you, but definitely they do not replace reading the Bible or studying the scriptures directly. So if you want to know also a little bit more about the process of the Manga Messiah series, go to Creative Motion Fall Issue. You can read it online, and this is an article about the collaboration that Comics 35 did when Manga Messiah series started. And if you like it as much as I do, you can buy the printed version in Amazon.com. Now I'm going to give you a brief introduction to the topic of Christian superheroes. This is Captain Sun. It was created a little bit more than 10 years ago by Bryce Morgan from the United States. He created it for his kids, and now it has been published in many issues. This issue is called The Night of the Piper. We had it in the last episode in Comics to Watch, but I would like to make a more detailed mention of this great project, because what makes it even more awesome is that it is an international collaboration between 20 artists, 5 pastors representing 5 different countries. Seeing people deliver drawings in great style, sharing emails, and Bryce Morgan encouraging and thanking everybody along the process, because all work was donated and sales go directly to a project from First Love International called the Butterfly Project in the Philippines that restores girls in elementary age and teenagers that unfortunately have been victim of abuse, human trafficking, or exploitation. This is badly in the rise in the Philippines. So if you would like to help, pray for this cause, and you can purchase both digital and printed versions in www.itscaptainsun.com. I don't have the pleasure to meet all the artists in person, but except for Flix Gillett from United Kingdom, because he has been a friend of Comics 35, and I had the chance to meet him last year. I gotta say goodbye, but not before inviting you to the next webinar I'm going to be teaching, Lord willing, in March the 10th for Magazine Training International. It's going to be a free webinar called Magazine Comics, How and Why to Use Them. It's going to be about creating short comics for magazines. So it's been great to be here with you. See you later. God bless you. Dios les bendiga. Dieu vous bénisse. So keep drawing, because practice makes perfect.
Hello, my name is Luke Stone, and I am the writer and the artist behind a book called Hybrids, the Sons of Gods. I want to take a few minutes today to just share with you about the story, kind of how I come up with the idea and where I hope to go with it. So I like to let people know, first off, I am a full-time pastor, and so that is kind of where I get the biblical inspiration behind the comic. But the comic is not a Christian comic, however. It is a comic written from a Christian worldview. I wanted to create something that was, number one, entertaining for people, but would also allow people of different backgrounds, different faith, and different kind of experiences the opportunity to talk and to connect with something, because I think there's always an opportunity to deal with some very human elements in no matter what you do. And so that's kind of the purpose behind the book. The title, Hybrids, the Sons of God, let me explain a little bit how I come up with that title. First off, about 10 years ago, I really started, probably a long longer than that now, probably 12 years ago, I started having conversations with a pastor friend of mine, and we would always talk about some of the more intriguing parts of Scripture, if you will. And one of those that always came up was this verse in Genesis chapter 6, where it talked about the angels, or the sons of God, or angels, coming down and seeing the daughters of men and having offspring with them. And the stories about that are really cool, and there's a lot of different places to look around for that information. And so we would have conversations about that. We would talk about different resources that talked about it. We would talk about the different religious texts that would mention the same thing as our Bible about these creatures. And so one day, as we were talking, I had always been into drawing comics and helped draw comics for other people, and had been doing that for a long time. And someone made the comment that, Luke, you should turn this into a comic book. You clearly have a passion for it, and it's a really cool story, and I think it'd be a fun one to tell. And I agreed. And so I really started buckling down on kind of doing my research, because I wanted to make sure I was putting something together that was good and would stand up against a little bit of scrutiny, because I wanted to hold some reality into the idea of people with powers. And so the idea was that, if the Nephilim, or, these angel-human hybrids were having offspring, then their offspring would also have offspring. And over those generations, the angel DNA would somehow dilute into the human DNA and maybe become like a dormant or recessive trait. And so instead of a recessive trait that would maybe give you red hair or blue eyes, you would have a recessive trait that could give you amazing powers. And so that was the idea of the name Hybrids, which was probably the earliest iteration of the comic, where it was just called Hybrids or Hybrids Nation, where it was this idea of angel-human hybrids. But the more research I did, the more I started to learn that the stories of the Nephilim actually predated stories of the Greek gods by about 1,500 years. And people that are way smarter than me actually believe that the Greek gods are actually just spins on real-life stories of the Nephilim. And so that really intrigued me, and it got me thinking, well, what if that really happened and people were in some way related to Zeus or Poseidon or things like that? And so that eventually brought about the second part of the title, Hybrids, the Sons of Gods, because in our story, these are the genetic offspring of the Greek gods. And so we start to pull in a lot of Greek mythology and unravel how some of those stories are really fantastic, but they're actually just exaggerations of real things that happened. And then we start to kind of make a real natural tie between all of these things, these bits of lore that we can read in different holy books and different historical accounts, and different mythical accounts, to things that could happen right now today. And so that's kind of the idea behind the title and where that came from. And so Hybrids, the Sons of Gods, really is that's kind of the gist of where these powers come from. And so the idea was, well, what if one day something happened to wake up this dormant trait and people started to develop the powers of the Greek gods? And that's exactly what happens in our book. But as I really started to buckle down on writing this book, I didn't want it to be just another book about superheroes, because there's a lot of those, and most of those don't do well. And I wanted to have something that really connected in a real way to what was going on in our world and what was going on between people and like people groups. And so the idea a few years ago came about that what if the people that started to develop these powers were being hunted and were being taken for some reason? And so that's how we actually start out our book. We have people that start to develop the power of the Greek gods seemingly overnight and out of nowhere, but just as soon as they show up with these powers, they start to vanish and disappear. And our focus is really on this band of heroes, and some of them have special powers, and some of them are very human and very flawed. But they are desperately trying to find out three things. Number one, who is taking all of these people with the special powers, and where are they taking them, and then finally, why are they taking them? And it turns out that, as you find out in issue 2, that we have some special connections and ties with some of the abducted, and we explore that story throughout the first 5 issues. Issue 4 is currently done and available at starcrosscomics.com. You might be able to see that in the ticker below. But we didn't want to just focus on that. We wanted to start to build and develop characters through that, because human trafficking is a real serious problem that we have, and corporate greed is a real serious problem that we have, and even more than that, we have this problem of faith and belief. And so we actually introduce one of our characters as being an atheist, and it's very difficult to try to reconcile the fact that you don't believe in God with the fact that your very nature, your very existence as a superhero or a hybrid gives proof that there were angels, and if there's angels, there's a God, and if there's God, there must be faith. And so the conversations that can come out of that and the issues that can come out of that are something I think that we can all relate to a bit. Additionally, the first arc opens up for the future. We're actually working on finishing the issue 5 right now of this first arc, and then hopefully this year we look to have 3 to 5 issues of our second arc done, and we're really looking forward to it, because it's going to give us an opportunity to deal with some more very human issues that people have. We have a former pastor who deals with his own demons. We have people that are dealing with loss. We have people that are dealing with faith. We have people that are dealing with I don't want to give away a lot of spoilers, but anything that you would deal with right now in this world that we live in, there is going to be the opportunity for these characters to deal with that. And it's all against the backdrop of, well, now I've got superpowers. And some people have superpowers and some people don't. And it's a matter of what they do with them and how they use them to try to make the world a little bit better. So that is kind of the gist of Hybrids, the Sons of Gods. It's a fun book that I'm excited to tell the story about. The art has progressed very much over the course of the last few years. It was originally released with a group called Tenacious Comics, and Tenacious Comics closed down in 2018. And so the book started to go into development in 2016, was finally released in 2018, I believe it was. And then issue 2 was ready to come out when the company closed its doors. And then Joe Spicer of Starcross Comics got a hold of me and said, look, I like what you're doing over there. Why don't you bring the story here and we'll publish it? And so in 2018, we re-released issue 1 with Starcross Comics, and then we released issue 2. It was kind of a soft launch, and we didn't really spend a whole lot of time working on that. I didn't really think anybody but other theology nerds would like it, besides, so I thought it was like a small group that might enjoy this. But it turns out that the work that we put into really developing the story and developing the bones of it has really paid off, because a lot of people really have given some positive feedback about it. And so those went okay. And then in 2019, we decided to go ahead and start to release the rest of the arc. And so I got busy drawing, got my creative team back together, and we released issue 3. Issue 2 and 3. And I think 2 was in 18, and then 2019 we did 3, and then also 4. But what happened when we got ready to do issue 4, we realized we had started to develop something at Starcross was called this combined universe, and we got really excited about the idea and prospects of creating a universe much like DC or Marvel, but with a bunch of indie creators. And so we all agreed that we would lend some of our intellectual properties and share some of our characters in each other's books so that we could create a story that spans beyond just one title, but actually encompasses 5 or 6 different titles. So when we did that, I've always wanted to go back and change a couple of things from some of the other books. And so we decided to do a full re-release of issues 1, 2, 3, and then a new issue of 4. And so all 3 issues then got a little bit of work where we started to put in little Easter eggs and some hints and some pieces of the other story so we can start tying everything together. And so I'm particularly excited about what you would get today if you went to the website and ordered it. It's pretty cool that we're doing this. And so there's still a lot of work to be done. Obviously, there's a lot of art still to be done, a lot of writing still to be done, but I'm really excited to be able to offer not just this story, but kind of a connection to other worlds. And so instead of just, waiting for more Hybrids, the Sons of Gods, you can actually order some of these other books and see where this whole thing will eventually overlap and tie into each other, because each string, it pulls another, and it's really kind of cool. So I encourage you to get a hold of the book, not just because I like it, and I'm a little biased, obviously, because it's something that I've written and I've drawn, and a friend of mine colors it, and I do the lettering. It's more than that, it's more than just something that I'm into. It's something that I think that you'll enjoy. I don't want to create something and spend all this time on something that I don't think that you will. We've had a lot of great feedback about the book. We've had a lot of people that have gotten into the story, and I think that you might enjoy it too. So please, you can go to Starcross Comics, www.starcrosscomics.com, and you can order the book, and our shippers will have that out in just a few days to you. And as soon as issue 5 comes out, we're going to let people, if you go to my website, lukestonestudios.com, if you go there, you can sign up for my mailing list, or you can sign up for the mailing list at Starcross Comics. Either way, you'll get information on when the next issue is coming out. And we're in the process of drawing that now. And so pretty deep into it. And as soon as the colorist gets done, we'll start getting those pages together and edited and get those out to print just as soon as we can. My expectation is that book will be finished probably within the next month. Fell a little bit behind on production because, well, that happens when you're an indie creator. But we're looking forward to sharing the rest of this story. And then once the whole thing is out, we may eventually at some point this year release a special edition trade paperback that includes some of the backstory, some of the research that I've done, some of those stories where how it all came about. Share some original concept art and some original covers and tell some stories about that. So there'll be a lot more than just the comic inside of that trade paperback, but it'll be kind of this is how the saga got started. And so we're looking forward to that. I encourage you to find me on Facebook or Twitter and like and subscribe, get a hold of me. And if you've bought the book and you find the book, and you get a hold of it, let me know what you think about it, and let other people know what you think about it. The word can only get spread by you guys. As many times as I want to think that we can promote this stuff on our own, we just can't. It really requires the fans to let people know about it. I think this is a great gift for people that might not know about the book but might be into comic books. And along with that, there's also a ton of other great titles over at Starcross Comics that you could get involved with, take a look at. I'm really proud of all the work that those guys are doing over there, and so it's really cool to be a part of that family. Let me take a second to talk about my creative team. So obviously I'm the writer, and it's kind of my brainchild, but I also do the pencils and inks. But I have a layout artist. I've worked with 2 now. Through issue 1, no layout artist. Issue 2, I started working with a guy named Antonio Alvarez, who kind of does the rough pencils for me for my layouts, and then I go in with the pencils and the inks. And then I send off the colors to a guy named Patrick Gamma, who has given all 4 books its look and feel as far as the color and the mood. And then the lettering, I round off with the lettering. Issue 5, which is actually in production right now, we are trying out a new layout artist, a guy named Brian Dawson, who is an amazing artist on his own. Certainly doesn't need any help at all to be awesome, but he is doing the layouts for this book, and he might take on another title or 2 for us in the future. But then again, I'm coming in with pencils and inks. Patrick Gamma is coming in with the colors on this book, and then I will be doing the letters once again. And so we're looking forward to keeping some consistency in the team, but obviously over the course of the last few years working on this, the art has progressed. I feel like I've gotten better as a writer and as an artist, and we've all gotten better at being able to tell the story through pictures and images. So I'm really excited to continue to keep that team together for this issue, and then also for the following arc.
Hello everyone, my name is Al Nickerson. Welcome to my studio. I'm here to tell you about my new self-published graphic novel, The Sword of Eden. I am a graduate of the School of Visual Arts in New York City. I started working in comics and in animation in 1994. I was an artist for Archie Comics and DC Comics and Marvel Comics. I was a designer and animator for folks like MTV Animation and Nickelodeon and Sesame Street. I was also working on creator-owned work at that time as well in the form of comics and animation. And I was self-publishing a couple of different books then as well. And nowadays I am self-publishing and working on the creator-owned work of the Sword of Eden series. The Sword of Eden graphic novel begins with Rebecca Stern. She is a young teenage Jewish girl who starts her career as a superhero. Another group of superheroes find out that the Sword of Eden, which is the sword that God put outside the Garden of Eden to keep man out of the garden, that's in Genesis chapter 3 in the Bible. These superheroes find out that the Sword of Eden still exists, and they want to retrieve the sword before any bad guys or villains get the sword themselves, because that would be a very bad day where a villain would have such a powerful weapon. Meanwhile, there are a group of demons who do not want people to find out that the Sword of Eden exists, so they do everything they can to stop the heroes from getting the sword. The demons believe that if man has more evidence of the existence of God, then that's bad for them. So Rebecca Stern meets up with all the other superheroes, and they go on this adventure to retrieve the Sword of Eden and fight the villains and the bad guys. The heroes also go on other adventures where they fight other demons and monsters and such. And the heroes also go on an adventure to locate Noah's Ark, which is also in the Bible. Well, I can't tell you how that works out or how that ends, if they can find the Ark or not, but you have to read the book to see how that all unfolds. The Sword of Eden graphic novel is a Christian graphic novel. It has very strong Christian themes in the story. I've had a very blessed career working in comics and in animation, and I just got tired of working in secular comics, and I wanted to give back to God, and I wanted to create a graphic novel series that Christians can read and not feel like their beliefs are being insulted, nor that they're compromising God's principles in any way. Comics and sequential art are a very powerful literary form. Comics is an art form. And I think that graphic novels and comics should tell very important stories. And that includes the gospel message. And I think, sharing the gospel and the things of God through comics is very important. And I think it's great to let people know about the gospel, that Jesus, God in the flesh, the Son of God, suffered and died for the sins of people and rose again. And that if you repent and believe, you can be made right with God and you can enter the kingdom of heaven when you step into eternity. And that's a wonderful, wonderful message. And that message should be told through something as powerful as comics and graphic novels. I've been getting tremendous feedback from readers about The Sword of Eden. I very much appreciate that. If you want to come and join the fun, stop by my website, theswordofeden.com. There are links at the website to purchase the book through Amazon, eBay, through PayPal. The graphic novel is 220 pages long. Cover price for each book is $19.99. The target audience is about preteens to and including adults. You can also purchase the book at christianbook.com, cbd.com. They're selling the book as well, which is great. Working with christianbook.com is fantastic. They're a great bunch of folks. Really appreciate them as well. I had mailed them 100 pounds of The Sword of Eden graphic novel, so they have plenty to sell, which is amazing. I would like to thank Creative Motion for inviting me on this episode of Christian Comics Connection. Thank you for watching. I have to get back to drawing some comics. I'm working on a sequel to The Sword of Eden, and that's called The Sword of Eden Shinobi. Grace and peace.